everybody, this is Angie Larson, and I get to serve as the executive pastor here at Calvary, and I'm so honored that you are worshiping with me here today. Here at Calvary, we are in the middle of a worship series called For. Oftentimes, I think that the church is known for what it's against rather than what it's for. And we here at Calvary, we want to focus in these few weeks on what the church is for, what Jesus encourages us to be for our community, for you. And today we're going to talk about being for taking risks. Oh, yeah. If you're anything like me, sometimes in life you have this nudging of unsettledness inside you, this thing that is prompting you to do something, but that thing seems hard. That thing seems too risky or too vulnerable. I want to wonder with you today about how to take risks and where is God in those risks. Thanks so much for joining us. Okay, so I moved to Minnesota just almost 2 years ago. In September, it will be 2 years that we have lived in Minnesota, me and my family. And on our move, I looked at my kids like the mom that I am, and I said, okay, guys, we are going to become true Minnesotans here on this next adventure of our lives. We're going to do Minnesotan things. We're going to do things like learn how to ice skate and learn how to go snowshoeing. We're going to learn how to go fishing and go boating. Guys, we are going to be Minnesotans. So I was trying to pump them up. But after we had lived here for a couple of months, I found out about this Learn to Skate clinic over at the RCC, the Alexandria Recreation Center. And this Learn to Skate clinic, it seemed like quite a deal to this mama. This Learn to Skate clinic was only $35 for 6 hours on the ice, and it included all of the hockey equipment. So I looked at my two kids and I said, hey, remember how we're going to be Minnesotans? Who wants to learn how to ice skate? And my older son, he looked at me like, no, thank you. And he kind of walked away. But then my daughter, who was 8 years old at the time, she looked at me and she's like, maybe, I don't know. I'm nervous. I've never done it before. It seems really scary. And I said, Skylar, don't worry. Everybody there is going to be new. It is a Learn to Skate clinic. So she reluctantly agreed to go to this Learn to Skate program. So Skylar, we get there, and there's another guy there, another dad who's helping me get all these strange hockey pads onto my little 8-year-old girl. And then he sits her down to lace up her skates, because you have to do that just sort of right. And I don't know what I'm doing in this hockey thing at all. This is so strange and foreign to me. But it was so fun to watch my little girl take out this little metal walker and begin to go out on the ice. And she is just skating. She is skating on the ice. And it wasn't 10 minutes later when she decided to ditch this little metal walker. And she's going around on this whole sheet of ice. And I'm like, yes, we are Minnesotans. And we celebrated. So fast forward a little bit to today. So less than 2 years later, we have a hockey player in our family. I mean, who knew? Well, somebody knew, but who knew that a $35 clinic would turn into every single weekend of our lives? Yeah. But she loves it and we love her, so we love it too. And she's part of this new team. She's part of this team called Northern Elite. It's a bunch of 8 and 9-year-old girls. And this Northern Elite team, it travels all around Minnesota so that they can play in hockey tournaments. And they were invited to play in a hockey tournament over at the Super Rink in Blaine, Minnesota. So we headed over there for the weekend. And I want to remind you that I know very, 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 very little about hockey. So Skylar, she's out there with her team, all the other girls, and they're skating on this whole giant sheet of ice, and they are working hard. They are skating hard, and they are scoring goals. There are a couple of things that I learned at our very first hockey tournament. The first one is that icing is not just something you put on a cupcake. The second one is that offsides is almost completely impossible to understand. And the third one happened at the end of this hockey game. So the score is really close. And all of a sudden at the end of the hockey game, I look down towards our goalie to see that she is not there. There is no goalie standing in front of our goal. In fact, the goalie is sitting on the bench. And I look at people around and they seem to be fine with this, but this makes no sense to me. This makes no sense to me. But I look over to the other side and we have an extra offensive player. But our goal is just sitting there wide and empty and unprotected. This blew my mind. Why on earth would anyone want to leave the goal wide open like that? My friends, we're continuing our worship series that we have called For. So often in the church, we talk about what we are against rather than what we are for. And today we're talking about what God wants for us. I'm going to challenge you. I think that God is for taking risks versus playing it safe. Now, I know if you're anything like me, you might prefer to play it safe rather than take a risk. So which one do you prefer? Do you prefer to take risks or to play it safe? I think so often in our lives, we think of taking risks, and it immediately brings us to things like this: skydiving, right? This is something I have never done nor plan to do. Or maybe we think of risks like bungee jumping, like these big, huge risks in life. Or maybe a risk for you is like leaving that goal completely exposed in hockey. But I want to wonder with you today if living a daring life, if living the life that Jesus is calling you into of risk-taking is actually a lot more intimate, a lot more vulnerable, ordinary, and messy. A time in my own life when I felt the most vulnerable and most messy was after my divorce in 2003. That's right, my friends, your pastor is divorced. After my short 4-year marriage and in my 20s that ended up with 2 wonderful children from that relationship. But anyone who has gone through a divorce or has watched somebody that they love go through a divorce knows how very, very painful it is. I got divorced while I was leading the first congregation I was called to serve. And I watched as the expectations for me outweighed my ability to rise up to them. And I remember looking at everyone in my life, including my parents and my congregation and my children, and I felt like I failed them. I felt like I was broken and damaged and ashamed. Because you see, my friends, I had prayed so hard for this marriage to work. I had prayed for this marriage to work, that my kids would have this stable home with a loving mom and dad, and I bargained with God. I mean, surely God should save my marriage. I mean, after all, I did work in the church. But that isn't at all how it went. Instead, I was 25. I was a 25-year-old single mom of 2 kids feeling wildly, wildly unworthy of love and unworthy of all the people around me. And after some time, when the wounds of my divorce started healing up, I started to imagine a different future for myself. I started to imagine who my dream husband might be. And I'm going to confess to you all here today, now don't tell him, but Ryan Larson is not my dream husband. That's true. Ryan Larson is not my dream husband. Because you see, at that time, I had in my mind that if I was ever going to date again, it would be when my kids were much, much older, like at least high school, maybe even out of the house. And I had that time in my mind, I thought, if I get married again, my dream husband, he would be really, really in love with me. Like, he would provide for me, since ministry, doesn't pay the big bucks. And he would take care of all the stuff that I wasn't good at, like cars and the house. And I would like him. I would like him a whole lot, but just not the way that he was so deeply in love with me. This way, I wouldn't have to open up my heart and hurt again. I would be able to keep it guarded and protected, just like a 9-year-old goalie in hockey pads. You see, I had figured that if I had this life with my dream husband, that I could keep this man at arm's distance, that I would spare myself the possibility of ever having my heart broken the way it was in my divorce. That I could keep up this wall of protection from pain that I had experienced and never, ever wanted to experience again. That I wouldn't have to be at risk. That I wouldn't have to do hard things or to be vulnerable. That I wouldn't have to hurt or fail again. I would just put up my wall and play it safe. This dream husband sounded so good to me. And I think that we honestly all do this, don't we? I think we want so badly to play it safe. We want to invest in only the things that we know that we're going to get a good, solid return on. I mean, jobs that are just fine and take care of the bills, but maybe we don't really love them. Or relationships that are friendly, but they don't really know the real stuff that's going on inside of us. Traditions and routines that we can count on. We stay in places and hang out with people that we are familiar with and comfortable with and that we know that we can expect from them. Anyone who has kids at home knows that kids do this all the time. They play it safe with their food. They basically eat 3 things, kids. They eat mac and cheese, chicken nuggets, and cereal. That's about it. We have this term for when we're playing it safe in our lives. We call it our comfort zone. It's like some things are in the zone, and then there are other things that are outside of the zone. It's like the sphere of protection of things that are known and familiar to us, things that we can completely depend upon. So I have this dog. This dog's name is Goober, and she turned 15 years old this week. And this dog is a dog that loves her comfort zone. If I move her bed even just a quarter of an inch, she will pull it back to her spot. This dog knows exactly what time she should be fed, what time she should be walked or let out, and she doesn't care at all if it's Saturday morning and her family is trying to sleep in. And I think that if a dog is like this with their comfort zone, then I'm confident that I know you and I are like this with our comfort zone too. Let's be honest for a second. How much do you love your comfort zone? But here's the thing about comfort zones. When I look in the Bible, when I scour scriptures, I cannot find anyone, not a single person after encountering God or after experiencing God who gets to stay in their comfort zone. Not a single one. If you find one, go ahead and email me because I would love to know it. I think probably the best example is a disciple named Peter. Peter, he has to get out of his comfort zone. God just actually forces him straight out of his comfort zone of his fishing boat, and he does something amazing. Here's the story that I think we're all familiar with, but here's how it goes. Jesus made the disciples, including Peter, get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side. And Jesus went up on a mountain by himself to pray. But later that night, he was there alone. And the boat, it was already a considerable distance from the land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. And shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the water. And when the disciples saw him walking on the water, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said. And they cried out in fear, but Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I, do not be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat and walked on the water and came towards Jesus. But when Peter saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. When I think about the risk that Peter felt to get out of the boat, to put his feet there on the water and the waves, to let go of that sideboard and proceed with caution with the storm raging all around him. Oh, I think about this miracle that happened, this really cool thing. I mean, think about how many preachers you've already heard that have preached the sermon, saying things like, if you want to walk on water, then you've got to get out of the boat. Or if you want great things, they happen at the end of your comfort zone. Or if you want to succeed in the impossible, fix your eyes on Jesus. But my friends, I am not that preacher, and this is not that sermon. I think we completely, entirely miss the story. I think we shortchange the story if we just leave it with this idea, if you want to walk on water, you've got to get out of your boat. I think we miss the entire point of this gospel story. Well, Peter, he seems brave. I'll give him that, right? This story, I think, actually has absolutely nothing to do with him at all. So he is just like the rest of us. He wouldn't have even tried to get out of that boat unless he saw and heard Jesus coming towards him before climbing out. You see, he didn't disembark from the boat before he even saw Jesus. Peter's walking on the water is not the point of this miracle story. The miracle is that Jesus himself is walking on the water in the first place. Jesus is the first one to go out and take this risk. Jesus is the first one to go out into the unknown, to leave the comfort zone of the land behind. And then it's Jesus who reaches out to Peter to invite him into it, and then to catch his friend when the nerves just get the best of him and he starts to sink. You see, it's Jesus who doesn't need a goalie. And it's Jesus who goes through the storm and the rain, through the waves and that threaten to drown you and me, through the parts of your life that just feel too risky, that just feel like they're such hard things where the risk and the vulnerability, it just seems so high. And it's Jesus who shows you that in this hard thing, this complication that is right in front of you, this challenge, this risk, it's Jesus who shows you that you will not drown, because my friends, Jesus can walk on water. So what is something in your life that you feel like is too hard? That big risk or that hard thing, that thing that just feels too big or vulnerable or exposed, that thing that you want to protect yourself from. Maybe it's making a new friend while you're in middle school, or maybe it's loving again after the death of your spouse. Or maybe it's choosing to try to be pregnant again after you have miscarried before, or choosing to forgive someone that has wronged you. Or maybe your difficult thing is going to a social gathering after you recently struggled with your sobriety and you know that the temptation could just be everywhere. Or maybe it's hugging someone after COVID, or crossing political aisles in order to come to a mutual agreement. Or maybe the risk is living into your true self, even though you fear you'll be totally rejected by your family. Or maybe it's taking up a job in which you might not have all the skills. Or maybe it's starting up a nonprofit when people might think you're crazy. Or maybe the big challenge is caring for a loved one through difficult cancer treatments. Or maybe it's telling your loved ones that you've decided to stop difficult cancer treatments. Or maybe it's guiding and caring for your loved one as they begin to slowly forget you because of the dementia. Or maybe it's moving your family to where you think God is calling you and you don't even know anyone there. Or maybe it's being kind to your ex-spouse when they are anything but kind to you. Maybe the risk is having a difficult conversation with someone. Or maybe it's picking up the phone when they call. Here's the good news, my friends. This risk, whatever hard thing is out there, whatever scary, fearful thing is out there that comes towards you, the thing that is outside of your comfort zone, that thing that is way beyond your control, it is not all on you, because Jesus can walk on water. You, like Peter, you don't have to fear because you are not alone in it. At the end of your comfort zone, you are not alone. You see, Jesus is there to hold your hand through it. You see, God has been operating without a net or a goalie or with any safety net, because the God is the God of hard things, and God has got you always. St. Paul writes, "No, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. For I'm convinced that neither death nor life, nor angels nor demons, neither the present nor things in the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation." And I want to include the hard things and the risks and the things that are pulling on your heart. None of these things will ever be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Jesus Christ, our Lord. You see, God did not save my first marriage as I prayed and prayed God would do. And God did not give me my dream husband, the one that I could keep at a distance, the one that I could keep at arm's length. But God did give me Ryan. And I'll be honest, he's entirely capable of breaking me. It's too vulnerable, and sometimes it just feels like too much, because he could wreck me if he wanted to. He could sink my entire ship. But this is how it goes with risk, isn't it? Things that might drown us, we can even get ourselves out of the boat. I would take that over and over again. And at that hockey game at the super rink in Blaine, Minnesota, the girls, they fought to the very last minute of this game. But then one of the other team's players got a hold of the puck, just chucked it down at our open, wide net. And there it went sliding fast, and the girls, they skated hard, but the other team scored, because this is what life is all about. Jesus said, I came so that they may have life and have it abundantly. Friends, Jesus frees us from the fear that comes with leaving our comfort zones, frees us from the fear that happens when we are standing on difficult seas, and frees us from the fear that holds us when panic sets its way in, so that we can live abundantly no matter what life throws at us. So we can truly be for taking risks. We can do this because we know that God goes with us. My friends, you can do hard things. You can take that risk because God is going to be with you through it. Amen.
Thank you so much for joining us for worship today. Please join us in praying the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us here for worship. Here at Calvary, we have been busy focusing in our mission to lead all people to a lifelong faith in Jesus Christ. If you're somebody who's new to Calvary, we would love to connect with you. And the way that we love to do this is by you joining our email list. Go to our website, www.calvaryalex.org, and click on the button, I want to sign up for emails. That way you'll be the first to know of all the things that are going on here at Calvary. If you've had the chance to worship with other people and you'd like to dig deeper into all the risky things we talked about today, you can go on that same website, www.calvaryalex.org, and click on Discussion Guide. It's a really great tool to be able to dig deeper into today's message. Also, if you'd like to enjoy the Lord's Supper with whoever you have gathered with you, on that same website, you can click on the button that says Communion, and there's a full traditional communion liturgy there available for you. If you're somebody who is going to travel to the Alexandria area or live in the Alexandria area, we'd love for you to join us for in-person worship. This summer, we're worshiping at 8 o'clock here at the church building with a traditional liturgical worship. And then at 10 o'clock, we're worshiping over at Luther Crest Bible Camp on the shores of beautiful Lake Carlos with a service that we call Calvary at the Lake. If you come over to the lake early at 9, we'll even serve you breakfast. And now, as we close our time together, we're going to close with a time of offering. Oh, we are so grateful that you have been for this church and you have been for this community for the last so many years. We're just so thankful for your generosity. There are 3 ways that you can give, and they're on your screen. The first is you can go to that same website, www.calvaryalex.org, and click on the button that says Give. The second is that you can mail a check to the church office at 605 Douglas Street, Alexandria, Minnesota, 56308. And the third is that you can call the number on your screen and we will help you figure it all out. Hey, take some risks. Have a great day, everyone.